What's up, guys and gals? It's time for the latest almost. We almost got caught up for the latest chapter of Record of Ragnarok Shuumatsu no Valkyrie with chapter 101. We did our catch-up month of April. We almost got caught up in time. 102, of course, dropped. I just finished reading 102, but we got to review 101 here. I'll try to keep any spoilers from 102 down to a minimum. Because, of course, we're going to review Chapter 102, and then we'll be officially caught up and looking forward to 103 actually on time for a change. So, anyways, this chapter, I like this chapter. There is a few things to say about it. The fact that basically this scatter shot, or as they refer to it as a buckshot, the buckshot is basically got none of the drawbacks of one, and Jack explains this. Heimdall, they're all going crazy, of course, because the beginning of the chapter is just them going through and saying, hey, what just happened with this crazy, the whole army of Heracleses and Odins and Thors was taken out with a single bullet. Now, that became Senbon Zakura Kagyoshi sort of idea, right? The flower bullet, but still, Loki actually appears unharmed, and not that he didn't, that it's like he didn't even have to dodge a bullet. I'm under the impression that this was intentional, that even though it was attacking a whole army and it took them all out, he's still a sniper. He has one target and one shot. He was targeting the army. Loki doesn't count as part of the army, so no bullet was even intended for Loki to begin with. That's what I sort of surmised right here. And he's trying to judge. Loki's trying to figure out, okay, he's clearly somewhere in this mountain range. He's somewhere over there. But he's already gone. Heimdall's already he's already gone. Man's already gone. Our cameras can't keep track of this man. We won't find him until he fires another shot, pretty much. Everyone cheers. Greatest sniper in history. Jack, once again, the bromance. This is why the peak of, some people say the peak was, of course, round 2. Round 2 was fantastic, but round 4 was the true peak of character development and stuff like that. I would change one small thing to this line, but I love how pissed off Jack is, and later on Ares is, in this chapter, about the fact that Loki pulled this stunt. It was like, no, anyone ever heard, no matter how much you might hate someone or whatever, don't speak ill of the dead? Because it's not that you can't say, this person was a piece of shit and I'm glad they're dead and blah, blah, blah. It's that you're bringing yourself down. It's not about respecting the person that died. There's a whole thing about that. I could get into it, but it's almost honor bound. Stand above that. Like, they are not alive anymore to defend themselves sort of idea. So the whole don't speak ill of the dead thing is just, it's more about your character than whose character you're talking about. Show some, not compassion, but show some integrity, and they're not even worth you ill speaking of them sort of idea. So that's the idea here, and this is basically a perversion, bringing back the image of Heracles to fight against humanity, is against everything Heracles was kind of standing for, and of course he was fake. Now, this also brings up a power scaling perspective here as well, because as I was trying to point out, is that there's no way that Loki, if he pours all his power into a copy of Thor, that copy is as powerful as the real Thor. And I argued this. This army of these guys there's no way, that's the real, quote unquote, real power of the real Odin. No matter how much power Loki gives him, these copies must be formidable. They're knocking down trees, they're doing shit, you know what I mean? But they're superhuman, but they're not on the level of the gods that they have been copied. And this is sort of brought up here because, Jack is talking to his Valkyrie there. I think it's Halak, is how you say it. And they just keep saying, like, mass-produced fakes must just be like that and stuff. And as I said, I would make one change to this line that Jack says. It's because he says, absolutely, there's no comparison between those things and the original. I would have liked him to say, because you know what he's really talking about. He's talking about Heracles. He's talking about the one person that changed his life, that changed and made him think different. Completely character development 101. The one person who actually color did not change. You know what I mean? The one person he respects in all the heavens and earth. The one person that he holds in the highest regard. And he's like, as he put, how dare he? This is unacceptable what Loki just pulled. I would have changed the line to absolutely. There's no comparison between those things and him, because he doesn't care about the Thor and Odin copies. He cares, like, of course he wants humanity to win, but he cares that he tarnished Heracles' image, that he used Heracles' image. That's what's pissed Jack off. So I like the fact that he's just like, yeah, that, you know, I just would have preferred a more like you can read it the same way, you know, that line, you can definitely read it the same way that, you know, that's what he's thinking about and that's who he's referring to, but it would have been nice to make it a little more potent, like, he's like, there's no comparison, those things aren't him, you know what I mean? I like that idea, right? So he goes on to, actually, it's funny that Jack, out of all people, granted he was, you know, 150 years ago sort of idea, or whatever like that, how long ago was, I always forget now, it was the 1870, it was the Whitechapel, anyways, basically, guns were around and stuff like that, but it's funny to me that Jack is actually the one explaining the difference between a single shot and a buckshot, or scatter shot, whatever, so they go into that whole details, and he says, like, you know, but there's none of the drawbacks, so there must be a special power involved here, because these things are individual sniper bullets, but it's done in a buckshot style, with none of the detriments, so something's going on and stuff like that, right? Then we get to Ares, who, once again, as I said, just like Jack, I mean, we know that Ares in this context, and I would like Ares to get a glow up when he's actually backed into a corner, that he actually shows up, and he's that guy who is, like, he's our comic relief, he's our bumbling guy, and he's not that great, because Ares is always, you know, the god of war, he's always so fantastic, and all the other fictions and stuff like that, so they made him not this confident, like the most powerful, you know, he's more of a bumbling guy, and he's, you know, he's a little scared and blah blah blah. I'd actually like to see a little bit of glow up on Ares when push comes to shove, that he actually shows up and he can fight. Like, I would love the twist to showcase that actually, and then Hermes goes on to say, like, whatever happens later on in the series is like, you know, Brother Ares may be timid and may be somewhat of a laughingstock to those who know him, blah, blah, blah. However, like a tiger that is backed into a corner with no way out, they come out, you know, swinging, like their claws are still deadly. You do not enrage the tiger, no matter how timid the tiger might seem. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, I'd like the idea that Ares is actually quite powerful. He's just 90% of the time, he's like this, you know, so we'll see what happens in the series, because I like Ares' emotion here. He's like, even if they are fakes, like, he's pissed. Like, if, like, this is what I mean, like, Ares right now thinks this is also, he's on Jack's side, he's like, this is unacceptable and stuff like that. Like, if he had it, if Loki had pulled that stunt in front of him, Ares would have fucking said, oh, no, you little twink shit. You know what I mean? Alright, you little femboy bitch. You know, like, he would have grabbed him, and yeah, and I would not put it past Ares to say, no, I'm fighting Loki right now. Fuck this shit. You know, so, because he's like, even if they're fakes, witnessing my friend, my true brother Heracles, being killed again in this way is such a, to make it, and by a mere gun, like, he's just like, he's so insulted. He's like, they're fakes. You made me witness him die again. Not only die again, but to something like a rifle. My brother in arms, Heracles, would not die to a mere human weapon like that. You know what I mean? Like, not again sort of idea, right? So, like, he's just, yeah. He is very traditional, sword and shield, man strength. I mean, look at his body and stuff. So, yeah, he's just, Ares is completely beside himself, and I like it. I like that he's pissed off on behalf of the Heracles. Once again, nobody gives a shit. Thor's just sitting there not giving a single crap. We don't see Odin's reaction, but, like, nobody cares about the Odin and the Thor copies. Everyone gives a shit, like, Loki, that was below the belt. You do not that's Heracles, that's our boy on humanity and the god side. Everyone's like, no, that was too far. No one gives a shit about the other thing. I love that. I think that's hilarious. So, you know, Ares swings Hermes around and stuff like that, and he's like, how does the VOLUND work in this way? And Zeus is bringing it up, and it might be another trick. Then this is where we start to get the explanation. Now, Buddha comes in and says, starts to talk to Brunhilde, and says, you know, because Gaul is obviously captured right now, so Buddha is now going to chill with Brunhilde. And it's just like, yeah, I'm just wondering something. That sniper boy, he's really terrifying. But the shared destiny that I taught you is a technique to create the VOLUNDs. They will actually be effective against the gods. And it's like, okay, so we got that, right? We already know about the history and how this all works. So even if a Valkyrie became a gun through the VOLUND, or even if they share their souls with a human through shared destiny, what would really work against the god is only the human's body or the gun itself. My problem with this actually plot issue, and they don't bring it up. They do not bring it up, but it is a bit of an issue. And funnily enough, they do show round 4 is that projectiles are turned into VOLUNDs through Jack, right? So this is my one issue with this, is that Buddha's basically bringing up the fact that he can't fire God-killing bullets out of a gun. But that sort of goes against what Jack was able to do with his gloves. Anything he touched turned into a VOLUND, and he could let go of. And we know this because Heraclean's arm was sliced off due to something, and it wasn't the gloves. So when he did that, he turned the projectile into a VOLUND. You can make the argument that that was the glove's power, but technically a gun's power is to fire bullets. So every time you load the chamber with a bullet, anything fired by the VOLUND gun would become a VOLUND bullet. So I think that what's happening here, this is a storytelling beat. This is a narrative beat for Simon and the Loki fight, for his backstory and stuff like that. But it does range a bit of a plot hole. Unless someone else can describe it to me, maybe I'm reading this wrong. But basically what Buddha's saying here is that what would really work against him is his body or the gun. It can't be the bullets. Unless you prepared special bullets for him, what he just fired should have been normal bullets. And he said, and Brunhilde brings up that this is the price to pay. That Simon is the only one who can fire those bullets. And when he fires that bullet, he sacrifices, apparently, his kidney. He uses his kidney, so he uses his body, supercharges it. The Reaper's contract with the Valkyrie, he uses one of his organs, sacrifices it, hence the coughing up of the blood. That incredibly powerful bullet using one of his organs, and that's the price. And Buddha is even shocked by this. He goes, an organ for a single bullet? And it's a god-killing bullet. But I would argue that once again, if the gun, and even Buddha brings up, unless you prepared him special bullets, that should have been a normal bullet. But once again, this really, I'm very confused how Jack is able to fire projectiles by touching them and throwing them. But a gun, you couldn't have the exact same sort of idea, but it could be down to the Valkyrie sister's abilities. I just find it a little weak because we just want this price to pay self-sacrifice. We want the intensity and the drama of it, but I really do think that there was another way to say, okay, you know what, you're not going to be the gun, but you're going to be this bullet, and this bullet is always going to be like Thor's hammer and come back to me. This one bullet is the VOLUND, and I'm going to keep firing it over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean? Or this chamber of bullets, and maybe you only have a limited number, like I got 30 bullets, or I only have a dozen bullets, but each of these bullets can kill a god in one shot, and that's, so he's got a limited thing or something. There was another way to do this, because this is just, I do think this is a bit of a plot hole problem, because even Buddha's shocked by how his technique, the VOLUND shared destiny, is being utilized right now with the Reaper's contract. So Buddha even brings up, that's gotta be way too painful. Because if he makes the bullet a part of his body, it makes sense that it works against the gods. But why is he fighting like that? For such a simple thing to go as far as simply having a clear mind, he is like, I respect the guy and stuff, but this is kind of intense. And this is where Brunhilde says he continued to kill his enemies and stuff, protecting the fatherland and shooting so many, but he experienced an unbearable pain. Therefore, the power of his was created. The unbearable pain he's feeling right now, destroying both his body and spirit, is his atonement for him. So, and then he fires once again, and this time he says Makasa, which is liver, and he uses the Reaper's contract once again to fire another bullet. And that pain, and he's coughing up the blood and stuff, and that pain is his salvation, the single shot, that destroys on a whim, final page of the chapter. So my big thing here, as I said, is that it's a narrative device, and I'm going to have a big issue if Simon doesn't win this fight. Because, and I think narratively he should win this fight, but one of the big issues here is that he literally, this is, as he's pointed out, like this unbearable pain, this is his atonement. So it's almost like he wants to sacrifice his body in this fight. And there was a way to do this differently. Like there was a way to make the VOLUND work like Jack's gloves or something like that. He could have still fired these god-killing bullets without sacrificing part of his organs and stuff like that. But he's choosing to do it in this way because this will be his salvation, as I say at the end of the chapter. So, once again, do I find it kind of like, okay, plot convenient a little bit? Did that take me out of the moment a little bit? Yeah, I would like to say, and very small spoiler, that this is not brought up in the next chapter either. I would have liked Buddha to bring up, like, wait a minute now, there's no reason to do that, Jack's gloves. You know what I mean? I would have liked him to actually say, he didn't have to do this, and then Brunhilde says, no, but he wanted it this way. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, like, I would like them to bring up, or at least bring that up and explain why it's different, because right now I'm a little confused. I feel like he could still use VOLUND god-piercing bullets without sacrificing his damn organs. Or once again, is that based on the Valkyrie's ability solely, and that was really down to Halak? Because I actually forget what her as a Valkyrie was giving Jack, because each one sort of gives something a little special, but sometimes that gets a little lost. We're just like, they fight with their weapon of choice. A Valkyrie sister is the one imbued in the weapon, and they can fight their style, and it's very rarely brought up that the Valkyrie sister's abilities play a factor into that, so maybe that's part of it. The Reaper's contract, obviously, with this sister is, it's a scale thing. You give me something to get something in return, so he's getting god-piercing bullets out of his VOLUND gun every time he gives something up to the Valkyrie sister. So, yeah, I mean, it sort of works, but I'm like, I'm just wondering, like, you know what I mean? So, anyways, maybe it does make sense, as I said. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Like, comment, subscribe, as always, because now we are officially going to be caught up in one more chapter. I might even review it today and produce it in a couple days from now. So, yeah, yep, chapter 101, technically, this was our catch-up chapter, finally done. 102 is actually new this month. So, yeah, we'll definitely be reading that one, reviewing that one here very, very soon. And then we'll be officially caught up. And then, yeah, back to regular scheduled Shuumatsu no Valkyrie. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the fact that I'll be able to now go on the Discord and Reddit and stuff like that and be able to, interact and see what people are saying without spoiling myself, right? So, thanks guys so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching once again, just because I've been very far behind. I was like 6-7 months behind with this series. Now we got all caught up into April, now into May. So, yeah, appreciate you guys sticking around for it. And we'll see you back here next time. Have a good one, everyone, and sayonara.